desire to fight when shit is wrong. That has been our history. Right now, they understand, the rulers, the powers that be, they understand that there is a rumble in the jungle coming in the horizon. They know that because they have a better sense of history than we do. They know very well that people in this country will rebel inevitably. They know that. They understand history. What we need to do is we need to create another rainbow coalition, if you want to call it that. Okay? I call it a new movement. And that, you know, rebellions and upsurges, they happen naturally. It's just like a year or two ago when Black Lives Matter started closing down highways, started closing down bridges, started closing down the streets. Okay, that was like the volcanic tremble before the actual eruption with lava. Okay, the people, you know, they don't have an economic remedy to the capitalist economic crisis. They do not have an economic remedy. Their remedies are to send our young people to war. That's why you've got recruiters now in just about every college in the United States, in the subway, etc. Their remedies are to create more prisons. Their remedies are to expand prison industries. I found out the other day that the McDonald's uniforms are actually produced in prisons. Okay? I actually found out the other day that some of the army tanks that come back from Afghanistan are cleaned out by prisoners. You see? So what they, you know, if we look at all the different details, human advancement is not on their agenda. And if we have an understanding of what rulers have done throughout history, feeding the slaves less, but yet demanding more from them during the harvest, you know, cutting down wages and yet speeding up production, all of these things, you know, they just raised the minimum wage on December 31st. But what they're not telling you is that that the cost of living has jumped like crazy. You know, so they're taking us for a bag of fools. See, you know, the point is that they have already a sense of the impulse, the social mass impulse, and it's the reason why they are gearing up with by militarizing the police, by centralizing the courts, expanding and increasing the criminal code, where you end up going to jail for, you know, taking a piss in a corner somewhere. Okay, it's all of these things. Well, you know, and we need to build a movement, you know, because people will rebel, but unless they rebel, they will play out what they're trying to do right now by putting Trump in our face, making us so scared that'll compel us to run over to the Democrats. Now the Democrats, to some people, think that they're a bunch of saints. Let me just tell you, most wars throughout U.S. history were called by Democrats. Let's not forget that the Democrats, that was the party of slave owners. They were the party of slave owners. Right now they're throwing Trump in our face so that they can funnel this other thing called you know, political, I call it political heroin. Okay? Because it's the best, they are the best demagogues that they've had throughout history. They are the ones who diffused many of our black and Latino leaders. Okay? They are the ones that are, you know, they broke down welfare. One of the greatest institutions of the New Deal, which was public assistance. It was the Democratic Party who tore that shit up under Clinton. Obama, okay? Homeboy Obama, that some people think he was. He deported over 200,000 immigrants. Deportation, okay? What was his act before he left office? He bombed the shit out of Syria, civilian targets. You know, so the point here is that we need to develop an independent movement, a movement that thinks independently of what the rulers throw as psychological.
Can I just add to your question? In the Young Lords, we used to have a practice, right? We had to develop political education groups of 6. Each person that completed the political education group began another political education group. Mm-hmm. That way, we expanded the consciousness. The other thing we did is that we made sure that we struggled with our own internal bullshit. So we would have general meetings where we did criticism and self-criticism amongst each other to help each other grow, to address whatever isms manifested themselves in our daily work.
Oh, you got kicked out?
So if you want to know how to organize, that's a beginning. If you want to start with CUNY as a student movement like PRS, like Puerto Rican Revolutionary Unity Movement.
PRSU.
Yeah, PRSU. Then you begin with that. You begin educating, getting an understanding of your ideology. What are you going to be pushing? Are you going to talk about socialism? How would you present socialism to the students? And then you start reading like we read. We read every single book we could get our hands on. And like I said, I was illiterate, but I learned to be literate through reading Marx, Lenin, Engels, reading about primitive communalism, capitalism, Mao Zedong, the Red Book. All those were instruments for us. And it helped to expand us because we had organized on common ground, educated on what it is that we were working towards, and we brought people in because they had an understanding of what it is that they would be fighting for with us.
And also learning about the history of every struggle.
Yep.
Learning about the origins of the women's movement, the origins of LGBTQ. Because you don't have to be of that social grouping to learn about another struggle. That's something that we learn in the Young Lords. As Olguie mentioned before, we went through your recruitment went through a process, just like in the military, where you go through boot camp and then you go through your specialist school and then you get assigned. Well, we had a very similar structure because we had a military structure, and we were forced to learn the struggles of other peoples, because in a socialist United States, let me tell you, make no mistake of it, white people are going to learn black history obligadamente, okay? Because there's no way to deal with white racism and white privilege unless you understand what the fuck the white people in America did. It's very simple. Well, in the Young Lords, we made our men, our brothers, understand the origins of women's oppression. Okay? Because
and with criticism and self-criticism, we would address. And we had 30 rules of discipline that were handed out if you didn't comply with those 30 rules of discipline, like you had the rules here. If you didn't comply with them, then you'd be excused and told you can leave the room.
or be terminated from the organization.
So the idea is if you're gonna build, you start with putting out a call. Even like, I'll give you an example, I was at CUNY, right, and they were going to raise tuition and reduce tap and Pell. I made a call, I did a leaflet and I asked, who is interested in stopping this process? Can you come to this meeting? People came to the meeting. We discussed what the process was, what the issues were, and then we discussed how we were going to address those issues. A committee was formed. And that committee then decided to take the school over and shut it down to make a point. Then there was infighting. There was infighting. The students who worked in the evening wanted to go to class, and why were we cutting the school off that they can't access their classes? We had a dialogue to bring the understanding that, yeah, you may go to class today, but how are you going to continue to go to class if this happens? If your tuition gets raised and your tap and Pell gets depleted. That brought the unity. So when we're organizing, it's important to reach out, get a consensus of what's needed, begin to plan, and you will see yourself expanding. The other thing is encourage the people who are studying journalism, who are studying media, to participate, because there is a censorship in the media today. You are not going to get the news the way you got it in the 60s, because everything was put out there. And journalists were journalists, they weren't opinion givers. Today that's not existing, so we got to create that. Okay.
So we want to take a short break in case anyone needs to stretch, go to the bathroom, and wants to grab some pizza. So if we can get back here in 5 minutes, because I think we got, lots of other people got questions and it seems like really lively. But take yourself 5 minutes to do whatever you got to do so you're feeling good.